JB here. Let's see here. JB here. Hope everybody's doing outstanding. Just really quick, apologies about this morning. Just ran into some a snafu. But here at 10:30 on this fine Tuesday morning, SPY is at 690, pretty much right on the dot here, up about a third of a percent. Um, Not much really to add from this morning. You know, I was going to say it this morning. Nice little headline from MarketWatch. Always good for some comedic relief. This morning, the next uh, comparison, because everybody likes to pull these comparisons, because instead of trying to explain the market, they like to use previous instances of market performance to clarify what's going on in the current market. So this morning, it was the events that happened over the weekend was a Franz Ferdinand moment for the market, spelling the end of the 60/40 portfolio. Uh, and then you read the article, and it's like someone wrote this piece and then said, ChatGPT, write this with a lot of adjectives so I sound extra intelligent, right? Lots of superfluous words that, similar like Jim Kane Chanos, however you pronounce his name. He does the same thing. Um, the saying always goes, right? Bears sound smart, bulls make money. It's kind of sometimes you see that and it doesn't make sense. And sometimes you read articles like the one I read on MarketWatch. I'm like, yeah, that's probably it. But we'll see how things play out. Hey, maybe it is, right? Maybe it changes. I mean, I don't. There's a lot of other events that have happened. I think are probably going to have more impact. That's probably to me not even in the top 10 of what's happened in the last, especially in 2025, and we'll see, maybe it's even at 2026. I don't know, but anyway, markets resuming their uptrend. We'll see how today plays out. Just moves this morning. I'm kicking myself, right? And I wouldn't say kicking myself. SanDisk has been an awesome performer. I'm trying to think of when I started trading it. I remember it was like 120 bucks. And it's one of those names you're like, okay, I've never seen this name before. And then you realize spin off of Western Digital from the start of the year. And I've known Western Digital for a long time. Right? I mean, God, that's an old company, right? Hard drives. If you've tried making, just I can go on rants around that for a while. But SanDisk, to me, when I think of SanDisk, I think about taking pictures with my camera and shoving a memory card in it, right? And what does it say? It's a SanDisk on it. So you think of memory. And so when I saw it running, I'm like, oh, it's a memory company. Maybe it has a little staying power. I don't know. And then you're wondering why it's running. So then, September, you see it rallying. And then you start to understand that memory prices were going bonkers, right? So that's some of it. And they try and figure out valuations. A recent spinoff from Western Digital. So it's hard to figure out its valuation. Then you start looking at comparisons. It says, okay, well, it trades whatever, it's like 4 or 5 times revenues. Then you start looking at the landscape or competitive landscape, and Micron, which is not just is not a exact competitor for SanDisk, but you look at its revenues, it was like 7, 8 times revenue. So okay, start doing the math. I'm like, well, SanDisk can go probably to 200 bucks, and then you watch it as what I call price discovery. It's when the market is trying to look at a name, and usually it happens after IPOs, spin-offs, or maybe some crazy earnings where it was a huge surprise, and then the market takes a while for price discovery, and that's up or down. So you have wild swings. So those times of price discovery make it very hard to hold. And SanDisk is like Exhibit A recently of having its price discovery and being very hard to hold. And when it's very hard to hold and you're trading options, it becomes frustrating because you can be right on the trade. You can know, hey, SanDisk is going to trade to 330 bucks. This is back in September. But for how I trade, and I'm not, I trade weeklies or further out, couple further out months. I don't go out too far. When you're up a couple 100%, it makes it hard to hold for the 1,000% or the 2,000% or the. So back in middle of December, I kept talking about SanDisk, right? And yeah, MU's 8 times revenues, Seagate 6 times revenues, Western Digital's 5 times revenues, SanDisk is 4 times revenues. And you look at the stock was 200 bucks at the time, and you're like, okay, well, if it just trades at the same multiple as Micron, it's a $400 stock, right? Then just trying to trade it. And then the other issue is because of the huge move in SanDisk, you're trying to get calls and you got to look $100 out of the money on the strike that expires in 3 days with no catalyst, there's no earnings, and then say, okay, how is this thing going to go? You're going to make money on it. And, probably frustrating. If the CES happened Thursday evening, maybe I would have had some lottos on SanDisk, but little did I know. Uh, so you start looking at some strikes. I'm just mind-boggling strikes. The 300 strikes were $3 yesterday, so those are $40 now. Then you start looking at some other names and you're like, okay, the 400 strikes. I think the last trade on those were 10 cents. The weeklies. So it's 245 by 270. Maybe that was the way to trade it, but this move could have happened next week or could have happened last week. So the other thing, so Micron earnings was kind of like the thing that to me in my head was like, okay, this could be the next catalyst for it. And I was like, when was the last time I was in SanDisk calls? Right before Christmas? I had the 275 December 26 strikes, right? So that's 2 weeks ago. I had the 275s. And I think the SanDisk was 250. So that I got those calls on the premise of Micron earnings kind of they put it on their conference call or at least talked about it, that it was like their business has nothing to do with demand anymore. It's all about supply, and they don't know when supply is ever going to catch up with demand. And then you see all these headlines, and I was joking about, I don't know if it was this morning or yesterday, maybe it was yesterday, Samsung announced like raising price on memory. It's just uh, tough to get ahead of. I'm not going to try and get some lottos here today. I mean, to get the $400 strikes with 3.5 days to expiration. They're 225 by 240 here. That's just not the type of risk cohort I do. But it's going to be fun to watch. I'll get the popcorn. All right, rants for other days on SanDisk, but hopefully find some other names that go through price discovery, and I have a little more conviction to get some crazy FOMOs and just hold on to them. All right, so that's SanDisk. Just quick on individual names. So Serve opened at 1280. It's sitting there. Tried to get over 13, fizzled back down to 1260. I don't want to be in a spot where there's some kind of pull in the afternoon, and I have January strikes that expire next week. I don't want to be in a spot where some kind of pull just destroys the premium. So maybe it runs to 1375 in the coming days. Maybe it doesn't. So I makes sense. Sometimes when I don't close out a position and then I get on a rant tomorrow, I'll be like, remember I talked about on a rant, I should have closed the position out. So I thought process there, locked the rest of my January 16 strikes in for over 100%. Still have the March strikes. Again, it's trying to weigh things out, and I don't want to be in a spot where I'm holding too many of the March strikes and it fizzles back down to $10. You just never know. So I took some more of the March strikes out for close to 300%. I'll just hold those March for now, and then maybe later today I'll get some more strikes on a pull. Maybe it gets to 1375. I'll get some more, but Serve, just like SanDisk, has been a monster profit trade for since June, right? And it's been both ways. So you would think, oh, how has he made money when the stock was at 18 and back to 10? It's just a matter of getting these bounces. And I don't know how many times, 3, 4, 5 times, I've been able to get some calls on these dips down these pulls from 14 to 10, 18 to 12, and then get the calls and then play these bounces. So today will be, hopefully it's green. The green has some follow through breaks over 13 into the afternoon. There'll be 5 days in a row to the upside on Serve. And funny, it was down 2025 at the end of the year. You're like, oh wow, Serve Robotics is down here at $12 or $13. The stock was $18. I think it went all the way up to 20 in 2025. And in February of 2025, there was news out because NVIDIA had this little holding in Serve Robotics, but it was more of because of an acquisition that NVIDIA had made, that acquisition had a holding in Serve Robotics. So NVIDIA sold off that Serve holdings back in February, and the stock went from like $18 down to 12 just on that news. And meanwhile, it wasn't like NVIDIA was saying, oh, we don't like Serve Robotics. It was just, hey, we have a business to run. It's not part of our business of holding these other companies. So anyway, the point of the story is Serve is up 20-something% so far to start the year. So remarkable stuff. All right, that's Serve. And then I started adding positions. I was actually looking to get Baidu earlier today, and then I'm looking at the premiums. I'm like, if I was still holding those 160s for this week, I'd be kind of disappointed because here it is. Baidu was all the way over 151, and then the 160s were barely higher than where I'd sold out. And here they are now, 36 by 53. So they're actually in the red now. And Baidu was reverse course. It was 151. Now it's down here, 148.73. I'll just continue to hold my calls in the next week. Already locked some in to cover some of the cost. But with that being said, looking at some other names in the Asia space or Southeast Asia, not only that, you have a South America spin is SE, right? And SE Global is one of my top 5 stocks back in, I think it was 2023? I have to go back when it was. Maybe it was COVID, 2021. But it was a $30, $40 stock. And, monster name. It's one of those, I used to call it the Baidu of Southeast Asia, right? Because it was one of those internet names that was kind of undiscovered. It has its hands in a lot of different cookie jars. It has the gaming side of things, which is huge. It has their Shopee side of the business, which is kind of like the Amazon. And then they have banking. So just a great story. And not only that, I think in 2020, so I must have done this webinar in 2021. Come on, I have to pull this up. Apologies, folks. Why don't I have this? So SE was one of my top 5 stocks in 2020. Uh, so back then they weren't profitable, and now they turned the corner. I think 2023, they're actually profitable company, and they have a huge cash hoard. So it's just a great story. So moral of the story, with everything going on with Central America, well, Venezuela and all that stuff, over the weekend, you're looking for some names that might benefit. And as SE's running, Melly Cabra's going up yesterday. So I'm looking at SE, and then you start looking at the chart. I'm like, oh, it's over its 50-day moving average. Interesting setup. And I was actually looking yesterday. I'm like, if I play some of these continuations, I want to get some more Baidu strikes. But Baidu's struggling a little bit here this morning. So I went and got those SE calls. And you look at this chart, and now you start looking, 153.75 hits, it's off to the races. So I went and got some, I was looking for weekly strikes, but it almost looked like the risk reward was more skewed towards getting January 16 calls. So I went and got those January 16 calls. It's all the way up to highs right after I got the strikes, been chopping around. If it finds some mojo, maybe I'll look to get some more strikes. But great story. I was mentioning this, maybe it was yesterday or Friday. Sometimes when I start scaling to positions, um, all it takes is one pull in the market to just have a really bad day. And I don't want to be in too many positions at the moment where one of those pulls makes for a really bad day. So that's why I'm kind of being a little cautious, adding some positions here. Uh, let's see here. Okay, but we'll see what's SE. So key spot on SE Global. Why don't I have the, did I post? Sorry, folks. I'm not used to doing my rants intraday right in the morning here. Okay, 130. All right, so that's SE. And then other names. So you have all those energy names running yesterday, some of it on the Venezuela news, and then the others, the AI, AI data center boom that's happening, and always front and center what's going on with having to, this power, this AI cycle, and the lack of energy and demand and whatever. So that story is always there. And then NKLR, and that's a SPAC name. So it's a name that you look around, try and do due diligence on, and Serve just broke 13. Um, you have some folks who think it's some kind of scam. I think there's some folks who are in it who are related to some other SPACs or whatever. And then you have other folks that think this is like the next OKLO. So I mean, I played some lottos back on the big move, and why don't I have the chart here on NKR? Here it is. Uh, Back in October, played for some nice profits, and then it's fizzled. And back in December, it's in the fours, bounced up to $6, and then back into the fours heading into 2026, and then it started to bounce. So we'll see what happens here. I was looking, do I get later strikes? I'm like 25 cents to get some lottos. So I went and dipped my toes in the lottos on NKLR. I mean, it could sit here at $5 for the next 2 weeks. That's one scenario. The other scenario could catch fire and just go bonkers to $10. If it does that, obviously I'll be sitting on some nice profits. So that's why I kind of got the lottos there. SG, Sweet Green's doing what it did yesterday, ramping after the open. It's up 4% here. It actually got downgraded by UBS this morning. Riddle me that, right? I was looking to close some of the calls yesterday or get out of position. I'll be patient, but don't be surprised if I lock my 750s in. That's Sweet Green. RH. Try not to talk about RH. Don't want to jinx the move here, but back up to highs from yesterday. Actually, just hit 206 a minute ago. You know my thoughts here. I think it's blue skies to 215 plus. Hopefully, it does that soon. And that's it, folks. Let's have a great day. I'll try and I'll be back on audio later. Rock and roll.